As the last embers of the campfire flickered, casting eerie shadows across the forest floor, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. We had embarked on this camping trip, my friends and I, seeking an adventure, an escape from the hustle of city life. Little did we know that our quest for tranquility would soon become a descent into the depths of terror. The forest around us seemed to come alive with strange sounds, rustling leaves, distant whispers, and the ominous creaking of branches overhead. I brushed it off as the typical noises of the wilderness, but an unsettling chill crawled up my spine. We had chosen a remote spot, deep within the heart of the ancient woods. The tall trees stood like silent sentinels, their branches interlocking to form a natural canopy that blocked out the moonlight. Shadows danced in the darkness, and every crackle of a twig underfoot echoed like a sinister prelude. As we settled into our tents, the atmosphere grew tense. The forest seemed to hold its breath, and an unspoken unease settled among us. I could sense it in the way my friends exchanged nervous glances, and the way the flames of the dying fire seemed to retreat, as if they too feared what lay beyond the circle of light. Sleep eluded me that night. The symphony of nocturnal sounds took on a dissonant quality, as if the creatures of the woods were conspiring against us. I lay there, eyes fixed on the fabric of the tent, my ears attuned to the slightest disturbance. Somewhere in the small hours of the morning, a blood-curdling scream shattered the stillness. It was a sound that seeped into my bones, and I bolted upright, heart pounding. The others in the neighboring tents were stirring, panic etched across their faces. Without a word, we fumbled for flashlights and stumbled out into the inky blackness. The forest had transformed into an impenetrable labyrinth, and the once familiar trail now seemed like an alien landscape. The air was heavy with an otherworldly energy, and a palpable sense of dread hung like a fog around us. Following the distant echoes of the scream, we plunged deeper into the woods. Each step felt like a descent into an abyss of the unknown. The trees seemed to close in on us, their twisted branches forming grotesque shapes in the shifting shadows. The trail led us to a clearing bathed in an eerie, sickly glow. In the center stood an ancient tree, its gnarled roots protruding from the ground like skeletal fingers. At its base lay the source of the scream, a tent, ripped open as if by some unseen force. As our flashlights danced across the torn fabric, we saw the remnants of a struggle. Personal belongings scattered, the ground churned with indistinct marks. Panic set in, and we called out our friend's name, but only the haunting echo of our own voices answered. A sudden gust of wind whispered through the leaves, carrying with it a spectral murmur that sent shivers down our spines. The atmosphere shifted, and an overwhelming sensation of being watched seized us. We pressed on, driven by fear and the desperate hope of finding our missing friend. The forest seemed to warp around us, the trail bending and twisting in unnatural ways. Shadows elongated and contorted, taking on grotesque forms that seemed to mock our futile search. Time lost its meaning as we stumbled through the haunted woods. Exhaustion and dread weighed on us like an invisible burden, and our breaths became labored in the oppressive silence. It was then that we stumbled upon an ancient, dilapidated cabin, hidden deep within the labyrinth of trees. The cabin stood as a relic from a bygone era, its windows shattered and the door ajar. A cold breeze whispered through the cracks, carrying with it the stench of decay. Reluctantly, we entered, our flashlights revealing a scene of unimaginable horror. The air inside was thick with the scent of rot, and the floor creaked beneath our weight. In the dim light, we saw remnants of what appeared to be a makeshift altar, symbols etched into the wood, candles melted into grotesque shapes, and an ancient book lying open with indecipherable text. As we explored further, we stumbled upon a room at the back of the cabin. The air grew colder, and a sense of impending doom settled upon us. In the corner, a tattered journal lay open, its pages filled with ramblings of an unhinged mind. The author spoke of a malevolent force that dwelled within the woods, a presence that demanded sacrifice to appease its insatiable hunger. The realization struck us like a physical blow. We had unwittingly entered a realm where the natural and supernatural collided. Our missing friend, it seemed, had become a victim of a dark ritual that had been performed in the heart of the forest. Dread clung to us as we left the cabin, each step heavier than the last. The forest had become a malevolent entity, its ancient secrets unraveling in the most horrifying way imaginable. We retraced our steps, the forest seemingly mocking our futile attempt to escape its clutches. The shadows clung to us, whispers of unseen entities followed our every move, and an invisible force pushed against us, as if the very air sought to imprison us within this cursed realm. As we ventured back toward the clearing, the trees seemed to close in, their branches entwining overhead to form a grotesque archway. The once familiar path twisted and contorted, leading us deeper into the heart of the malevolent woods. Panic surged within us, but there was no turning back. The clearing, now bathed in the feeble light of dawn, revealed a scene of surreal horror. The remnants of our campfire lay smoldering, casting elongated shadows that danced eerily across the ground. The torn tent flapped in the morning breeze, its shredded fabric a testament to the violence that had unfolded beneath the twisted branches. A sudden hush fell upon the forest, a pregnant silence that magnified the dread in our hearts. We felt eyes upon us, unseen and malevolent. The very ground beneath our feet seemed to pulse with an ancient malevolence, and a voice echoed through the wind, a spectral whisper that reverberated in the recesses of our minds. "You trespassed into the realm of shadows, and now shadows shall consume you." The words seemed to hang in the air, and an unseen force propelled us forward, deeper into the foreboding forest. The trees groaned as if in agony, their branches contorting into unnatural shapes that resembled reaching claws. Fear clung to us like a second skin, and the weight of an unseen presence pressed upon our chests, making each breath a struggle. As we stumbled forward, the forest shifted around us, distorting reality itself. The once clear path now twisted and turned in maddening patterns, leading us in circles. Time lost its meaning, and the boundaries between nightmare and reality blurred. The shadows, once mere observers, now coalesced into sinister shapes that slithered through the underbrush. Dark figures danced at the edge of our vision, their movements unnaturally fluid and unsettling. We quickened our pace, desperate to escape the encroaching darkness. The forest, it seemed, had become a malevolent entity, a living, breathing nightmare that fed on our terror. The spectral voice taunted us, whispering twisted promises of eternal suffering and despair. We were trapped in a nightmarish carnival, with the trees as twisted jesters and the shadows as malevolent ringmasters. In our frenzied attempt to escape, we stumbled upon the dilapidated cabin once again. The broken windows and creaking door seemed to mock us, a cruel reminder of the horrors that lurked within. Against our better judgment, we entered, seeking refuge from the encroaching darkness outside. The air inside the cabin had grown thicker, and the malevolent energy seemed to concentrate in the very walls. The altar, once a silent witness to unspeakable rituals, now pulsed with an otherworldly glow. The symbols etched into the wood seemed to writhe and shift, as if alive. A voice echoed through the cabin, not audible to the ears but resonating in the depths of our souls. It spoke of ancient pacts and forbidden knowledge, of a curse that bound the forest and its inhabitants to a cycle of torment and sacrifice. The malevolent force that dwelled within demanded retribution, and we were unwittingly ensnared in its web. In a desperate attempt to break free, we stumbled out of the cabin and found ourselves back in the clearing. The once familiar landscape had morphed into a surreal dreamscape, a nightmarish realm where the rules of reality no longer applied. A spectral figure materialized before us, its form indistinct and ever-shifting. It spoke with a voice that echoed through the void, a chorus of tortured souls entwined in a haunting melody. The figure beckoned, and we were drawn toward it, helpless against the unseen force that guided our every step. As we approached, the figure whispered the final, chilling revelation: "You are now bound to the eternal dance of shadows. Your presence fuels the malevolence that courses through these woods. Welcome to an eternity of horror." The world around us disintegrated into shadows, and we were consumed by an abyss of eternal darkness. Our screams echoed in the emptiness, lost in a void where time had no meaning. And so, the cursed forest claimed its latest victims, adding our tortured souls to the legion of shadows that wandered its haunted depths. the malevolent force that dwelled within reveled in our despair, perpetuating the cycle of terror that bound us to the unforgiving woods. The clearing stood silent once more, the torn remnants of our camp the only evidence of the nightmarish ordeal. The twisted trees whispered secrets to the wind, and the shadows danced in macabre celebration, as the cursed forest awaited the next unsuspecting souls to wander into its grasp.